All right, good morning, everyone. Wanted to give just a few minutes to allow everyone to jump on. So thank you for being here. I know it's a kind of a dreary Tuesday morning, so I appreciate everyone that's in attendance. All right, so today we are going to talk about a very, very exciting document that really dictates the transfer process. But before I do, I wanted to say thank you also to everyone for submitting their CF&C assessments, and of course those personal narratives that came in. I am hoping to get to those, to all that this week, and get all of my grading called up. So just wanted to mention that before I forgot it. I had it in my notes. So back to this exciting document that we are going to be talking about today. So let me share my screen real quick. Okay, this is going to be so exciting. So I hope that you all will find it as enjoyable as I do. So what we're going to talk about today is the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement. So if you guys read Chapter 5, then you saw a little bit about this on page 127. Basically, the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement is what dictates the transfer process between the North Carolina community colleges and the UNC sister institutions. This document was originally produced, I want to say back in 2009, but it may have been a little bit before that actually. And then it was redone again in 2014. And 2014 is whenever I started working here at Appalachian. I was working at Caldwell, there at the Hudson or the Watauga campus doing mental health counseling, and then this job came open, and that's whenever I started here. And with the revamping of the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement came quite a few different things that universities had to adhere to. And basically what the point of this was to make transfer easier. Before this Comprehensive Articulation Agreement, there was only like one class that transferred easily to all of the sister institutions, and that was English 111. And even then, it didn't transfer always as equivalent credit. So they wanted to come up with a way that students could more easily transfer to the institutions and have their credit actually work for them. Hold on just a minute. I'm going to make sure that everybody is muted. Okay, all right, perfect. I was getting a little bit of feedback there. Okay, so this is the most current version of it. I don't expect for all of you guys to read this. I have a copy of it in my office printed out, and it's kind of like my Bible whenever it comes to everything that I have to do for transfer students. But basically, it has the ability to pass legislation that said, again, that courses had to transfer more easily, and it also gave the community colleges the ability to kind of have a little bit more structure and how the AA and AS degrees were laid out. So prior to this, we had what was called the 44 core. So you could get the 44 core, which was a diploma, and that was basically 44 hours that would meet general education. And it didn't meet general education at all of the institutions. It did here at Appalachian, but not everywhere. So they wanted to give it more of a comprehensive feel. And to be honest with you, they also wanted to give the community colleges an opportunity to teach more classes to students as they completed a degree. At this time, community colleges were receiving funding based on how many students they had in seats in classes. And by switching kind of how that funding was done, now community colleges receive funding based on how many degrees are completed by students. So it's much more of a goal for degree completion. But with the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement, all of this came about. And again, this is people in Raleigh making these decisions, and then as it trickles down, as you guys get older, as things trickle down from the top, the people that have to implement it find the cracks in the structure of it. But what I need for you to know is that there's a Transfer Advisory Committee. The Transfer Advisory Committee lets us know exactly how everything's going to work. Who's chatting me? Let's see. Okay, it's not letting me see my chat. Okay. So anyway, lets us know how everything's going to work. My supervisor, Jane Rex, is actually on the Transfer Advisory Committee. And so they go around making sure that all the universities are exactly where they need to be. All right, let's see here. There is a process in here. So one of the things that we have to do is create what's called the transfer guides. And I think I've told you guys about these previously. All right. And so let's look at these just a minute. So these guides are what I have to do every single summer. So we've kind of looked at these before very briefly whenever we first started the class. In our first few classes, when we were talking about the transfer services website and kind of what these things look like. Well, the comprehensive articulation agreement is the reason why all of these guides have to be produced and reproduced every year. One thing that you'll find is that changes happen throughout life, as we've talked about before, and one thing that happens very frequently is changes in higher education, especially within curriculum. So here at Appalachian, there's always curriculum changes and things that are happening. So what's happening right now in, let's say, environmental science is not the same thing that happened last year. And the reason I say that is because they had two huge curriculum changes. So in looking at that, whenever we're looking at these guides, we have to understand that curriculum changes do happen here at the senior institutions, and so you have to be able to roll with those punches. So what you're seeing here on these guides is basically what's happening here currently at the institution. There may be a few changes once you get here. So let's look just a little bit closer at some of these, just because I want to make sure that you understand exactly how these are laid out. In the next week or so, I think after fall break, we're going to start on your maps, and your maps are basically how everything's going to be laid out over the next few semesters. So these are going to be really important to you as you make that map or that guide, that plan, because a lot of you who are going to a UNC institution will have these. I know we have one student who's thinking about going to Lees McRae, and I'm not sure if they have guides like this. I know the private institutions do have a comprehensive articulation agreement that's very similar to ours, but I don't know how many of those institutions or which ones actually signed on. So let's look at, let's say, biology, because there's a lot of students who go into biology. And one thing I want y'all to understand is that these are all concentrations. So each major, or a lot of the majors, all have concentrations. There's a difference between a concentration and a minor. Concentration is specialization within the major, and then a minor is extra courses that you are taking to complete something towards it's also a specialization, but it's outside of the major. So a lot of students who maybe go into biology, they may do a minor in, I don't know, Spanish or something like that, just to kind of have that other bit of experience and knowledge under their belt. So let's look here at this biology major, cell and molecular. Now these are always going to be archived because students can use these up to 4 years. If, let's say, that you're going to be there for the next 2 years, and so you need to be able to look at it and see what this is going to look like because it's starting under that catalog for you, then you got it archived. But again, keep in mind, changes happen. Okay, so let me move y'all over so I can get to my... So basically what this is telling us is it is telling us exactly what courses are recommended for you to take at the community college for this major. It's telling you the North Carolina Community College course here, the English 111, Math 171, Bio 111, the UGETC course. Now, UGETC courses are Universal General Education Transfer Components. That's a huge long title that basically means there's 42 courses that you are allowed to take that will transfer into any of the UNC sister institutions' general education requirements. So, whenever you see a UGETC course, it means that you can click there. It's going to take you over here to the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement Transfer Course List. And then it's going to, you should have seen on there that it said Humanities Fine Arts. So then you can look down here and find a Humanities Fine Arts course, such as Art 111, Art 114, Art 115. The UGETC courses are always bolded in the transfer course list, so you can see. And you can see there's a lot of them. So there's more here for the sciences. So basically that means you can go through the course list and find a course that fits in there. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take a specific course. It just means you need to take a course that's within that category. So we tell you the course name, how many hours, the Appalachian equivalent. So that's very important that you know how it's going to transfer to Appalachian. And then, of course, any notes. So here we're recommending that you take Math 171 as a prereq for Math 172 because you have to have chemistry, and then you also, oh, it's an associate in science. That's why you have to have the two maths. So that's the difference between the AA and the AS is you have to have one math for the AA and one science for the AA, and then for the associate in science, you have to have two sciences and two maths. So all that, so that's why you have to do that. And also the math, the calculus is required. So Math 171 and 172 are the prereqs for Calculus 1. Now you can take a placement test. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but you can take a placement test to see if you can place into a higher math so that you don't have to take those prerequisite maths. But a lot of students aren't there yet, so we wanted to make sure that they had those maths built in so that they could get that done, and also as a requirement of the associate in science. But as you can see, we've listed everything here that is required for this degree. If you follow this, you're going to get quite a bit of what you need. And then it's going to tell you exactly what classes you need to take when you get to Appalachian. Now, of course, this is a transfer guide. Guide meaning that it's not set in stone. Yes, it's printed black and white, but it is like a roadmap. Now, as I said, curriculum changes can happen, and as a result of this, what you see here in the Appalachian coursework may be a little bit different. There may be been a co-requisite, and by co-requisite I mean there may be two classes that you need to take together or can take together. Prerequisites may have changed, and prerequisites by I mean a course that you have to take before another course. So you just need to be aware that things may be a little bit different once you get here, but these are very good tools for you, and whenever we get to that map, it's pretty much going to be exactly what you need to be looking at to fill in your map, but we'll work through that as we get there. And then at the bottom here, it's going to give you some other information. Right here, as it says here, a minor in chemistry can be completed by adding chemistry 4581. So if you wanted to get a minor in chemistry, then you can definitely do that. And as you see, you've got some free electives here, and so that's whenever you could add that course in. So keep in mind of those notes, and then of course we've given you some various transfer resources so that you have access to that. But let's look at another transfer guide real quick. It's a little bit different than biology. I know we've got some music people in our class, so let's look at music. Now, music is one of those that is very, very individualized in its advising. So if you were looking into going into any of our music majors, it's going to be a very individualized process. You also are required to do an audition regardless of the music major that you're going into. Now for the music majors, they highly, highly recommend that students get 30 hours of UGETC coursework, so 30 hours of general education courses that are going to transfer to meet general education at Appalachian, not necessarily get the 2-year degree, and then transfer. And the reason for that is because they're not going to take very much community college coursework, if any, to transfer into the major. So you don't have that option of taking any courses. So what that basically means is if you are going to complete the 2-year degree, then there's a high likelihood that you might be at the community college longer than you need to be taking classes that aren't going to apply to anything. Okay, and then once we get down to the Appalachian coursework, as you can see, we've left it very, very ambiguous because it is such an individualized process at the School of Music here at Appalachian that we have left that there so that you can kind of build as you need to. But as you can also see here at the bottom, we've given you a couple of notes that kind of detail exactly what that process is going to look like for you. and that you can kind of expect a minimum 2.5 years to complete the required transfer degree after transferring. So kind of something to consider there as we look forward. All right, so transfer guides are a big one. Another thing to consider is as you're looking at the comprehensive articulation agreement, we also have other types of articulation agreements. The most common that we see are those students transferring to us with the AA or AS degree, the Associate in Arts or Associate in Science. And that's what these transfer guides that I have produced, or that any of the UNC sister institutions have produced, that's what they concentrate on. But then we also have other articulation agreements. We can have baccalaureate, I'm sorry, not baccalaureate, bilateral, that was the word I was looking for, bilateral articulation agreements. And these are articulation agreements that happen between institutions. So if we go from the Transfer Services website, then this gives us a list of all of the articulation agreements. So under the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement, it's the AA, the AS, the AFA in Visual Arts, the Early Childhood AAS to the BS in Child Development, so that's B through K, Associate in Fine Arts Music to the Bachelor of Music, and Associate in Fine Arts Theater to the Bachelor of Arts in Theater here. So these articulation agreements are mandated by the state. However, they do not transfer to meet all of general education requirements as the transfer degree or the AA or AS would. Now, we have created degree plans or transfer guides that detail what courses a student could take while at the community college that would transfer to meet all of the general education requirements once they transferred, but the degree itself does not meet that. And that's one thing to consider as we're looking at these bilateral articulation agreements, is that it does not transfer one-to-one. So if we look at the one for speech language pathology, now this is one of the ones we have through Caldwell. Now this is a little bit different format. So over here, this top part are going to be the courses that you take as part of the AAS degree in speech language pathology. And I know nobody in our class is taking this, but it's knowledge that you need to understand just in case you decide to change your mind, something happens, whatever. But this tells you exactly what courses you're going to take as part of that AAS degree that are going to transfer and how they're going to transfer. These are the major specific courses that you take that are going to transfer to meet degree requirements. And then how many credit hours you're actually going to get. And on the second page, we're looking at the courses that you would have to take here at Appalachian. So there would still be general education courses left to complete, and a good bit of the major courses to end up being 122 to 123 hours. So that's kind of how these bilateral articulation agreements work, is they take the coursework, and those AAS and AFA degrees are so specific that there's not enough generality among the courses to say they meet gen ed. And so we have to pull it out course by course. And typically, if a student is coming to us without one of these bilateral articulation agreements, we don't take much of their credit because we haven't made that agreement between ourselves and the other institution. But if they are coming to us under one of these bilateral articulation agreements, it's very beneficial because we're able to take a lot more of that coursework for them. And so then the question remains, why would a student go into one of these degrees? Sometimes it's by mistake. Sometimes they get in there and then realize they want to transfer. We have that happen a lot with criminal justice, especially coming out of some of our other community colleges. Students get in there and then they realize, well, I'd really like to get a bachelor's degree and maybe become a cop or a detective or do something else. So we have a lot of that happening with regard to that. So those are the things that I kind of want you to know about the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement. One, it's the agreement that happens between us as an institution, our senior institution, with the community colleges. It dictates pretty much that whole transfer process. It dictates what courses you can take as part of your AA and AS degree. It requires that we have the transfer guides, which are going to be very beneficial whenever you do your mapping project here in the next few weeks. And all of the institutions should have these. Now, again, they are not all going to look the way that ours look at here at Appalachian. Some of them are going to look quite different, but you can check those out as you need to. If you would like to read the Comprehensive Articulation Agreement, it would be a fabulous bedtime read if you have trouble sleeping. I promise you, I've read it many times and it doesn't get any more entertaining. But if that is something that you would like to do, then I will put a link out for it. I will also put a link out on Moodle after I post this video that links you to the transfer guides also. But again, if you would like to read through this, just so you know your rights as a student, as a community college student transferring to an institution, I encourage you to do so. Again, I encourage you to do it at night as you're going to bed, because it will probably put you to sleep. Okay, so moving on, there were a few other things that I wanted to look at. Here in the chapter. We talked about the bilateral articulation agreements. We talked about the transfer process a little bit. Okay. A few other things I wanted to talk about is, one, today is October 1st. And October 1st is the opening of FAFSA. I know Skip was there to talk with you guys about that last week. So today you can get on FAFSA if you need to. I will post those links that Skip sent. He got them to me end of last week. So I'll post those links for you also with regard to the scholarships, because that's something that you guys need to go ahead and be getting a good grasp on. I'll also get you guys out a Excel spreadsheet, kind of how Skip was talking about, so that if you want to go ahead and start that scholarship spreadsheet, that you can. I think that that would be a really, really great idea if you could. So we'll go ahead and get that part out to you. And then let me just make sure there's nothing else I wanted to discuss. Oh, if you did read the chapter and you saw the section on tuition surcharge, that is no longer a thing here in North Carolina. They actually got rid of that at the beginning of this semester. So what used to happen is if you went over 140 hours for any degree, first undergraduate degree, then you would get charged tuition and a half for every hour over that. I actually got called in this. This came about like in 2002. 2003, something like that. And mine was the first graduating class that had to deal with this. So I actually had to pay this tuition surcharge. I am still paying the tuition surcharge as part of my financial aid. But tuition surcharge is no longer an issue. Granted, we don't want you to stay at an institution forever, but we just felt like, or the state felt like it was an issue whenever it came to transfer students. So no more tuition surcharge if you read about that. We did the bilateral agreement, Shigetsu cards. Make sure I'm not missing anything real quick. Talked about that. All right. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is we talked about the transfer guides, but then also want to talk about programs of study. So programs of study differ based on each institution. And the transfer guides are what you're going to use now, but whenever you get to the university, you're going to be looking at programs of study, which are a little bit different, and they look totally different. I know that whenever you look at the catalog and things like that, or even your PSPR at Caldwell, that looks different, but I would like for you guys to also go ahead and be familiar with the programs of study at the institutions that y'all are going to be attending, just so you kind of have an idea of what that looks like. So these are what the programs of study look like at Appalachian. They're listed very much like the transfer guides in that they're all in alphabetical order. And they give you, this is building sciences, they give you how many general education hours you can double dip. So let's say that you're not getting the degree, the 2-year degree, and you're just getting credit. I know some of you guys are doing that. So you can have some things that are going to double dip. So they'll count for general education requirements and major requirements. So that's kind of what that means whenever I say double dip, they're counting in both. And then of course, all of your major requirements. And the great thing about our programs of study, which I think a lot of other institutions have also, is you can kind of see what these course descriptions look like and exactly when they're offered. Now, one thing I did want to make note of is these co-requisites. So for this one, co-requisite or prerequisite. Co-requisite meaning you can take it together, as I said earlier. Prerequisite meaning you have to take it before you can take the class. Now this is an either or. So let's say that you were a transfer student, you came in, only thing you were missing was your math. So you needed to take Math 1010, but we needed to still get you into Tech 1708 because it's kind of like one of the beginning classes for this major. Well, that's whenever it would be a co-requisite. But if you're like a first-year student coming in, not really ready to start on your major, then they would say, well, you need to take Math 1010 before we put you into this class. So that's kind of the difference in how we look at students with regard to co-requisite and prerequisite. But this is going to tell you pretty much everything you have to have, all the courses. It's also going to tell you if you have to have a minimum grade of C or better. That's not something that the transfer guides tell you. We don't put quite that much detail into it because that's something that your advisor would work with you here at Appalachian once you got to Appalachian. Major electives, now these are courses that are a little bit more well, you can choose. You have more variety. That's what I was looking for. You have more variety in your selection of what courses you want to take. This one does not require a minor, but keep in mind that any type of BA degree here at Appalachian requires a minor and a foreign language. Now, some of our BS degrees do require a minor, but majority of them, it is an option. So again, a minor being a course or a series of courses that kind of give you a little bit more of that specialization. The minor is not required on this one, but as you can see, it does have a suggested minor in community and regional planning or sustainable technology. But again, that is recommended or suggested, not required. Sometimes students just don't want to do a minor. I did not do a minor with mine because my concentration, with my undergrad, because my concentration was pretty intense. So, but programs of study can look like this. You can also print them out. I kind of think that the printed out version is a little bit more difficult to understand and read because it's just so long. These things get to be very, very, very long. But it does give you the prerequisites laid out in a list so that you can kind of see what that looks like and not have to click on the title to see what the prerequisites are. So if you want to do it this way, you're more than welcome to. I suggest, working with this in conjunction with your degree audit once you get to whatever senior institution you're going to be going to. So programs of study are very important, whether you're at the community college or you're at the university. Those programs of study at Caldwell can be found in their catalog. You can also print out your PSPR. I don't exactly know what that acronym is. I just know it's what they use as part of their computer system. And that gives you a good detail of what courses are available to you for each section of your degree. If you have any questions about that, we can look through that whenever we do start that map. So for that map, we are going to be looking at that PSPR. We're also going to be looking at that in conjunction with the transfer guides, and then we'll be laying out each of your semesters as we go through. And that'll be something that you and your advisor can utilize as you are working on your next semester, which should be coming up very soon. From what I understand, the spring and summer, I think the spring and summer schedule's coming out October 14th. So we need to get those maps at least started so that you have that as a tool. Okay, let me make sure before we close out today, I want to make sure that I have everybody accounted for who's here. So give me 1 second before y'all log out. Kathy. Lee, Madison. Haley. Carson, Kathy. Got y'all. Okay. Savannah. Silas. And Justin's last one on the list. Okay. All right, guys. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. Like I said, it's the most enjoyable thing, but it is pretty much what dictates a lot of my life. So I need for y'all to understand that. The next thing we're going to be talking about is Chapter 6. And that's career goal exploration. So I want, by that time, I'm going to have gone over your CFNC assessments. So I'm kind of going to be pulling some of that and to talk about, and then we'll talk a little bit about this as far as job shadowing and volunteering and all of this. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I would like to get to Chapter 7, goal setting. So please keep in mind that this Thursday we will go through Chapter 6 again through Zoom via webinar. And then next Tuesday, the Tuesday before fall break, we will be meeting in class and we will be working on SMART goals. So we'll be looking at three goals that we need to make into SMART goals. I'll be presenting on that. So as far as Chapter 6 goes, we'll spend a little bit of time on that and then talking a little bit more about career exploration, and then we'll get a little bit more into goal setting in Chapter 7. So I hope you guys have a great day. Try to get all my grading caught up, as I said, as quickly as possible. If you need anything, feel free to email me. A lot of you guys have, and I appreciate the open lines of communication, so keep that up. Thank you again for turning in all of your assignments and getting those done, and I appreciate all of you guys being here. So I will see you all this Thursday via Zoom again, and then next Tuesday we will meet in class, and then the next Thursday y'all have fall break, so there's no class that day. So all right, have a great day, guys, and again, if you need me, let me know. Thank you so much.